As Ravi already said, this started for me and Terese as a master thesis in industrial design in 2005. It's 8 years ago we started this, and it took us 7 years to get this invention to work properly. When we were about to choose what kind of master thesis we wanted to do, there was a law introduced in Sweden making it mandatory for all children to use bicycle helmets. But there's a big problem in the whole world that people aren't using the traditional helmets. And we wanted to see if there was a possibility to change that. Do we have the same problem?
Yeah? I think use this rather.
Okay, this is better. Yeah, we wanted to see if it was possible to make a change and to make something radical that would actually make people that commuted to work to use a protection when biking. So that was our starting point and our goal, to make something radical.
When choosing the subject, choosing to develop a new kind of bicycle helmet, we choose that because we wanted to develop a product that could be of use to a lot of people. And bicycling is a global phenomenon, and a way to protect your head is needed everywhere. So that was also a starting point, and throughout the years it's been a great motivation for us, of course, to be able to make an impact on people's lives and save lives in the end. We took a very good look at the products that were available on the market. How are the traditional bicycle helmets made? And they're all pretty much based on sports cycling, we discovered, both in functionality and in look. There's a great lack of variety when it comes to bicycle helmets. And we questioned, is bicycling a sport? And the answer to that question is, of course, no, it's not. People use their bicycles as a way of transportation. They take the bicycle to work, to school, or whatever. And for that kind of urban, everyday bicycling, there was not really a good way of protecting your head, in our opinion.
So we went out in the city asking people what they wanted. And they said they wanted something invisible that didn't destroy their hair. So how do you make a helmet that don't destroy your hair? It can't sit on your head, obviously. And so we thought of airbag technology and wanted to see if it was possible to make an airbag helmet. We talked with airbag industry, and they said to us that the actual airbag system is not your biggest challenge here, because the airbag and the inflator that you're going to use are existing on the market. You can just choose whatever you want and just squeeze it a little bit to be able to use it for bicycle helmets. But the algorithm to find the abnormal movement in a bicyclist in an accident has no one else done before, and we can't help you with that because we're using the car chassis itself to protect the body and to find the abnormal movement in a car accident. So we had to find the best mathematicians we could, and we employed them with venture capital. And it took us, together with the mathematicians, 4 years just to find these abnormal movements by making thousands of real bicycle accidents with men and women and crash test dummies, all known bicycle accidents. So we collected the data from them, from the body movements in these accidents. And then we collected data from hundreds and hundreds of normal cycling, and also what we call extreme normal cycling, which is pick up keys from the floor, sneeze on the bike, quick stops, all kind of body movements you might do when you're cycling and still being normal. And then our mathematicians found this method to divide the normal cycling from the abnormal cycling, and they found this algorithm that is the program in our product that actually takes the decision to inflate in an accident, and that took us the longest time. But then
We do have the product with us today if you want to see it.
Sorry. I don't have a pocket. These aren't for dresses, these things. But I don't use it anymore, so I can...
So the solution was basically to create a color for bicyclists, a color that you wear around your neck, and that you can switch on with an on-off button to make it activated when you're on your bicycle. Yeah, this is the on-off button, and Anna's gonna activate it right now. And when she does that, there's a sound signal that you probably don't hear, that tells you that it's activated. And there are also some LEDs that lit up to tell you that it's on, and also to show you the battery level, because you charge the product with a micro USB cable to your computer or to the wall. So now Anna can go out bicycling and be safe in traffic. And if she should end up in a bicycle accident, the airbag that is folded inside will inflate in the shape of a hood that you see in the back, protecting a very large area of your head. And also, the shock absorbance capacity compared to the traditional helmets is more than 3 times better. The airbag inflates in 1/10 of a second. And when the airbag inflates, the pressure from the airbag will open up the tear seam, that we call it. It's the seam up here, in the top part of the collar, in order for it to inflate correctly around your head.
And if you can show the shells, we have shells as well, because people wanted something that was discreet, and they wanted to change the looks of the helmet to be able to match different styles, different weathers, different climates. For instance, many people in Japan have wished for a shell like this with a cooling system inside, because it's really hot in Tokyo, for instance, in the summers, and probably here in Hong Kong as well. This is a black one, that's a paisley patterned one, and this coming spring we're launching 4 new ones. You can read everything about us on our website as well, www.hövding.com.
Zuckerbergs are going to be designers, actually. It's fantastic, and it's a great business and prospect. If design entrepreneur is a fabulous possible vocation for you, a possible title for you, how about the next one? Chief Design Officer of a city. Now that's design vision really writ large. Design beyond product, but design has to improve the quality of life at a civic scale. To introduce the rather civic-minded Professor Chung from Design Seoul. Yes. Come along, Professor Chung. Okay. Let's have a chat about Design Seoul.
Okay, thank you, Lavi. Let's start something about weather of Seoul. 2 days ago, there was a heavy snow in Seoul. So everything was covered by about 10 centimeters. So it's really cold and very, very, very cold. So that yesterday morning, it takes about 2 hours to melting down the thick ice and the snow on the plane, so that my plane was delayed 2 hours. I explain these issues because I envy Hong Kong, especially in the weather. It's very mild and very good, even in the winter. So let's start talk about the Design Seoul. Design Seoul is a project undertaken by Seoul Metropolitan government since 2006. We have 3 objectives: to improve, to refine the cityscape of Seoul, to make a beautiful Seoul, then to vitalize the design Seoul in terms of economy, is what we call designomics, to prosperity of Seoul. Then finally, we are to improve the quality of life of people living in Seoul by solving social problems. All by strategic use of design. So that project initiated year 2006 when former Mayor Oh Se-hoon was elected as the mayor. He had some ideas like design is everywhere. So in his inauguration speech, he invited all the citizens as well as government staff to design Seoul together. So the Design Seoul project started. But they need some expert who can initiate that project. So that I invited as a chief design officer, equivalent to deputy mayor of Seoul. So during last 4 years, a couple of years, we initiated that project. And actually, that project is not just for public design or just for industrial design or graphic design, but it's a design for all, design for everything as well as a design for everyone, whether poor or rich or something like that. So that we organized Design Seoul Committee who carefully evaluate the quality of design of public buildings and the public facilities and transportation, any kind of project, we have to evaluate, check in terms of design. So we have about 100 design experts who can evaluate each project under the Design Seoul guidelines. So we established the Design Seoul guidelines in many items like public building, public facilities, and something like that. Then we have to carefully check the result of work done by every working unit under the name of Design Seoul audit. So when the working unit start to do a project, we carefully evaluating the quality of design. If they passed, then the work can be done. So after finishing the project is also evaluated, audited under the Design Seoul guideline. That's the system, how it works. So there are about 5,000 projects was undertaken under that kind of direction, so that the quality of design improved dramatically during last couple of years. In terms of Design Seoul economy, designomics, we supported small and medium-sized design consulting firm providing long-term loan with a low interest rate, so that we supported $40 million for 3 years for over 200 design consulting firms. So that is just for operating money, so that it is very helpful for the design consulting firm to overpass the economic difficulties. So finally, we focus on the quality of life. So we carefully examine how people live and what kind of support can be possible by using design. So we started to support for socially weak people like elderly, handicapped, and children, and pregnant women, and foreigners who cannot speak Korean. So that we developed a variety of designs to help them. For example, for improving the quality of social communication, we developed a new telephone consulting service. It's a name called 120. If anyone who has some questions or inquiries regarding Seoul, then they can just dial 120, then immediately connected to the very kind consultant who provide you all the appropriate answer. So for foreigners, just add number 9, then English-speaking consultants also provide you all the solutions. We also developed design guidelines for the public toilet. Okay. Usually the number of ladies' toilet is less than men's. So usually there was a long queue in front of the ladies' toilet. So we started to change all the kind of issues, as well as we developed some uniform for the street sweepers. Usually they wear some special clothing, but it's not safe. So that we redesigned that uniform to provide the safety, to improve the safety of street sweepers by using design. All these kind of activities are integrated by myself as the chief design officer. Especially I'm on the deputy mayor level, so that every head of every working unit have to report to me in terms of their project, so that I can handle the quality of, maintain the quality of their project in terms of design. So that project continued over 4 years, and then Seoul became the World Design Capital year 2010. It's a first World Design Capital. And then Seoul became the UNESCO Design City year 2010. So that that project was internationally well recognized. However, there are some changes in the political situation there in Seoul in 2010. Then the mayor resigned year 2011 because of some political issues. So new mayor came to Seoul the October 2011. He didn't pay much attention to design to compare with the former one. However, the design Seoul is established well down as a system. As I explained earlier, design committee and the guidelines and auditing system. So that works even though the organization itself shrinked, downsized, or half, so that the Design Seoul project still goes on. Especially a month ago, there was a special seminar on design for anti-crime. So how we can prevent crimes in the city level, so that Design Seoul is a strategy for enhancing the brand asset of Seoul. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Professor Chung. I mean, an absolutely wide curriculum of over 100 projects that comprise Design Seoul, from the concierge services for visitors and Korean citizens, right around to, as you described, redesigning of the toilets, which is absolutely vital. So thank you, Professor Chung. There'll be opportunities for questions immediately after all the presentations. The next story is a particularly poignant story. It's a very, very personal story. And Han Pham was a refugee from Vietnam. And when she was in a refugee camp in Singapore, she was infected by a needle that was used in her care that was infected. And she contracted a virus, and she was desperately ill. Fast forward to many, many years later, Han Pham finds herself in Denmark. She's studying at a leading Danish design institution, and she designs a product while she's there that goes on to win the Popular Choice Award at the Index Awards. To talk to us about the Yellow One antivirus kit, Han Pham.
Thank you. First of all, I think I have to stand up because this chair and I are not friends, you know. So I hope it's okay, and I'm also short, so that, you know, make me level with the others. Yes, but this is, as Ravi says, it's a very personal story for me, because when I graduate, I might have to do this project. I was thinking, you know, how could I, with the background that I had, that I would like to design something that improves people's life, because I think design has a big responsibility for the world. So I was struggling with, you know, how can I do that? And I found these personal angles really important as designers. And I also, you know, think that the coming projects also, if you can derive it from the personal angle, your design gonna be original or unique. So to get back to this, I started in 2004 by researching about needle sticks in the world. And I found, like in the Western in the US and England, there was around 400,000 needle stick, per year. And I think, okay, this problem is so big here in the Western, how could it be in developing countries? So I started researching through WHO, and they're experts, and I found out it was like millions and trillions needles, injected wrongly every year. And also the WHO, they said to me that this problem had been neglected for the last 40 years because it has something to do with HIV and AIDS and things like that. The taboo, that people don't want to talk about this. So instead of do something, we just ignore it. So I think, okay, this is a big challenge. I didn't know what I'm gonna end up with, but I'm gonna try. So I started out doing my research, and I know I live in Denmark. At that time, I didn't have the time or the money to go to the developing countries to do my research. So what I did, it took me 2 months to find a really good user that I know that could be my eyes and ears out there. So I found these doctors from Doctors Without Borders. She's a really expert in the whole healthcare waste management for over 20 years, and she also a UN observer to clinics around the world. So she knows a lot about this problem. So what she did is that she was going out during my project around 5 or 6 times, and each time I communicate with her so she can get if I have a question, she would take pictures for me, and she would ask, and she was we work really, really close together. And then I found out, I've been very inspired by her stories, as she said, because the most common problem with the needle stick injuries is actually when you separated the needle from the syringe, and also the transportation of it. Half of all the incident is happening, with the two things. And she told me by herself, her story is when she's going out working for Doctors Without Borders, let's say in Africa, in Kenya, when she's on a patient visit, she used to take a Coca-Cola with her for drink, and also for her safety, because if you got this bottled water, you can actually fill it with it, and you can fill everything. With the cans, you cannot do that. So that's for her own safety. So she took this with her, and when she went out to the patient visit and injected the patient, afterward, she actually had to separate the needle from the syringes by her bare hand. And she said it's a very stressful situation for her. So she was thinking about that only, instead of, paying attention to the patient. And afterwards, when she's done that, she put into the can, and then she takes some rubbish or whatever she could find nearby, and put it into the can, and then she takes it home and put it in the so-called sharp kit, which is the technology that Doctors Without Borders have developed. So it's basically a hole where you dig a hole, and then you put things and stuff into it. And then when it's filled up, you can just put some cement. Is it cement? Beton? Yes, cement, and then you seal it that way. So that gave me an inspiration to say, okay, if I could, make a solution that make her safe, then she could, concentrate on doing what she's really good at. That means, treating the patient. So I found this, and the can is very, I think each year there's around 270 billion cans produced, and around the world, in some countries, by then, when I researched it, there's a lot of countries who didn't use a can as a recycle, but now some countries begin to do it. But nevertheless, there's a lot of cans around there. And also there's another aspect of it is I would like to make this product very cheap, because if it's expensive, then you know we're never going out there. So I have this can already, and it's out there. So what I need is to develop this cap that could be sealed into the can. So once you click it on, you cannot take it off. So that's the whole idea of it. And it's also, when you separate the needle from the syringes, it's actually, if you can seal the needle for the next 3 days, then the risk for getting HIV is much less. So that's also about isolation, the potential infectious disease.
Thanks, Hans. Yes. That's a wonderful story. Thank you very much. That's the alchemy of the 21st century, when you convert a waste product like a can, a soda can, into something that serves that kind of purpose. And who'd have thought that the simple separation of a needle from a syringe is such a hazardous exercise, and all those needle stick injuries that you spoke about that runs into the millions the world over is solved by a simple device that's less than $1 in cost. And this particular device is now in the permanent collection at the MoMA, which is fantastic, and congratulations, Han. And it's amazing that, you know, in terms of the Index Awards, what's abundantly clear, you can go from the mega level across a cityscape like Seoul and spend hundreds of millions of dollars, as well as a simple product that's less than $1 in terms of production. So it's an equal opportunity design play, and really it's not about scale, but it's about impact. It's not about scale, it's about impact. And the 3 big criteria for Index in particular is form. Sure, it must look gorgeous. You want to try and legislate against ugly things. 2, it must have great impact, and a huge part of what it is that we're looking for is stuff that have been tested out in the field, not just prototypes, but things that have been put into effect. And 3rd, and very, very importantly, is context, because it's so important to understand this unique context, especially when you're designing for the emerging world, and to be able to understand the socioeconomic conditions of the emerging world. And I saw one rather elegant water dispenser being designed for the emerging world that costs, you know, $30 a pop. And that couldn't possibly work for people who get by on less than $1 a day. So context and understanding the socioeconomic context is so, so crucial. And in order to be able to help us along in our jury process annually, our jury chairman is Michael Hellstrm. Michael has the rather illustrious title. We've got some gorgeous titles here with Design Entrepreneurs, Chief Design Officer of the City of Seoul, and Michael is Chief Visionary Officer. Chief Visionary Officer of a global design consultancy, started in Copenhagen. He's a co-founder of it, started in 1991. It's called Design It, and he helps brands and companies the world over in helping them understand the value of design thinking. And collective creativity is what you call it. Hey, Michael.
Thanks, Ravi, and very much so, yeah. We've been in the design field for 20 years now, but I think the most exciting years actually have been the, you know, since 2002, where Index kind of saw its, you know, its beginning, because as I see it, you know, it's been, a lot of things have happened the last 10 years. And every time I listen to these amazing stories, I've heard them before, but I get re-fascinated by them somehow, because not only do they show us different ways of coming up with solutions, but I think the main part of what you guys did and what Index stands for is not only rethinking solutions, but rethinking the problems, going back to the context you just mentioned, right? Because sometimes the right way of solving a problem, it's not coming up with hundreds of great design solutions. Maybe it's going back to the root cause and rethinking the problem instead. That might be the solution. And I think over these 10 years as well, and you're showing us that as well, politicians, industries, everybody, even designers started believe in design as a means for doing something bigger than just, the white teacups. I mean, that's a favorite expression of ours at Index. You know, the world doesn't need more white teacups. If they do, it better be a good one if we design them, right? So, but yeah, I mean, this was actually, this is getting past now, right? Because you were the winners and were fantastic winners, right? But now we're trying to look a bit forward, because 2013 is again nomination year, right? And we already received tons of great contributions, people who submitted their proposals, projects, ideas to the Index website. But the thing is, we want more. And we want you We want to engage you. We want to engage your network. So if you have fantastic projects yourselves, or if you know someone who did a great, amazing thing out there that is designed to improve life, we'd be so happy to hear from you. And the fact is we're open now for nominations until the 17th of December. And
No, you've given them an extra day. It's actually the 16th.
16th, okay, yeah. I mean, that was just my free round until the 17th, okay. No, but the thing is, and we want to head for at least 1,000 great ideas, right? Because being a jury chairman, which is a special honor, and being the jury, we want some good stuff to choose from. So please submit whatever you know of great things out there. We'd love to receive them.
Thanks, Michael. And it's so important to say, I mean, this award was started in Denmark, but it's really something of global consequence. It's a global movement. And with entries coming from over 80 countries all around the world, you all have a chance to submit your entries. So there's 500,000 euros in prize money up for grabs. It's the world's richest design prize, but it's really, really serving a very, very high purpose. So I'm sure you must have some questions for our fabulous creative entrepreneurs, the Chief Design Officer, Han Pham, who's used a personal experience and this wonderful epitome of the saying, in the deeply personal comes the universal. And she solved a problem that she experienced as a teenager, and it now has got universal applications. You must have some questions. Are there any questions from the audience?
Hi, thanks for your Anna and Terese. I have a question regarding your marketing tools. How you develop excellently regarding you get the funding from the investors, but you know, I actually never heard about the helmet, and then it's very unrecognized thing, but I'm sure it's a very useful tool. How did you market, and does the bicycle store person will tell you or tell the items on what did you think about the marketing strategy?
Well, to start off, I could tell you a little about during the many years of research, we kept completely quiet about everything because we wanted to keep the competition on a distance. So the first time we actually showed the product in public was in October in 2010. And that was at the technical fair in Stockholm, Sweden. And we were launching our new website at the same time. That experience was quite overwhelming, because what happened was that after our presentation, we started getting phone calls from all over the world, from CNN, from ABC, from CCTV. They were all asking, because our crash test movies had been spread on the internet through YouTube, and they had seen it, and the website was still just in Swedish. We didn't actually have time to translate any of it. So there was a massive PR storm, you could say. And that has been ongoing ever since. We're still getting an extreme amount of phone calls every week, but we're a small company, so we don't have the resources or the money to market in a huge way. We don't have the money to do any TV commercials. So of course it takes time to spread the word, but that's why we're here in a way, telling people about the product. We started selling it in November last year. So far it's in Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and we have signed up with distributors for a lot of countries in Europe. So early next year it's going to be in Germany, Austria, Netherlands, Belgium, Switzerland. Still just in Europe, sadly. But yeah.
Online?
Yeah, we do have it on our web shop, Hövding.com.
What's the unit cost of it, by the way?
€499.
Okay, 499 euros, you too can have a Paisley inflatable helmet as well. I think the other interesting story for them really is how do you make the transition from being a designer and studying design and going into the hurly-burly of talking to venture capitalists and raising funds, and in this instance, raising $10 million in seed capital for the company, for Hövding. Maybe you want to tell us a bit about that? What are venture capitalists like? Are they distant relatives of the human race?
Yeah, they're special people, I must say. It's really tough with venture capital, especially when it comes to consumer products, because they have so much opinions, like, I don't have a hair, I don't care about my hair. Maybe they're old, maybe they're bald. And it can fail because of that. They could say no just because they don't have a hair, just because they're bald, for instance, compared to if you have like a really high-tech product, like a gas turbine for some kind of industry. It's completely different and much easier to find venture capital. So we've struggled through the years to find the best ones and the bravest ones, which I think we did so far.
The heretical question to ask you is, how much of your company do you still own and how much is owned by these bold venture capitalists?
That's a secret.
Any other questions, folks? Out there, let me come over to you.
Hi, Anna and Terese. I'm from the business world, so one of my questions is, I know venture capitalists, you know, they have very different agendas from the designers. So what is your working relationship with them? Because a lot of the times, the VCs will think about things like time to market, you know, price, cost, profit, whereas you're thinking about producing a revolutionary design, something that'll make big social impact. So how much control do you have in the process, and like, how much of a struggle is it for you?
We had
Fabulous question.
We had to learn their language, so we had to learn all the business part as well, and we've become business women as well as designers. We had to be able to do this. So we can't demand them to become designer-thinking people. We had to be business-thinking people instead.
Professor Chung coined the word designomics, and these two are now embodiment of the word designomics, right? More questions?
Hello. I wonder if you could share just what do you think was the moment that the venture capital decided, or based on what type of information, or was it a sketch, was it a prototype, was it a scenario that made them decide, oh, I like to invest with these two ladies, so I like to invest or join the project. I think it would be interesting to hear if you can share that piece.
Yeah, the first venture capital was raised after we've proved that there actually are abnormal movements in bicycle accidents. So we had to loan money to be able to do these first crash tests with crash test dummies, and collecting data from their body movements, and those showed that there are body movements that we can find and use. So that was what was needed, and also patents, of course, to be able to raise capital.
How many patents does this particular product hold? You have
3 right now.
3 patents.
Yeah.
Question right here.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody. I think it's very enjoyable this afternoon. My 9 sections in the past 2 days. I just want to throw one question. Every one of you been doing very, very sincerely and also dedicated for your own expertise, like Mr. Chung and also the 2 ladies and the lady living in Denmark. If we see the whole world is just one global village, what you've been doing successfully in Seoul or Sweden and Denmark, you see other people being actually in great lead of those. Have you been actually thinking how you can also extend to help other countries? You know, I heard about maybe the lady who asked about, you know, your distribution or marketing of your beautiful helmet. in this part of the world, we're actually in great need, perhaps. So other than what you've been spearheading, getting the award and also getting the venture capitalists to invest in yours, have you also extended to other countries who are actually in greater need?
So your question is scaling, expanding this beautiful idea, right? Yeah, but obviously, I guess you guys have been thinking as well. First, you need a great product, right? That fills a need out there. And then you need to work on what? On size and price and all this. I mean, the more you can hunt stuff like that down, the easier you can scale the idea out, right? But I think the amazing thing in that project is, I mean, going from a thesis project, realizing that this could be really big, and then, knocking on the door of the first bald-headed venture capitalist, right? I mean, that's where the marathon starts. That's what shows us, ideas somehow come easy, but really doing it, realizing it, that's a big, big part.
I think maybe the other flip side of that question is to say, how do you take this message and this popular movement to say to more people around the world that you can escape the tyranny of the brief, you can escape the commission, you can start to formulate products and solutions to improve the quality of life. There's a huge incentive out here. And I think from an index point of view, there's 3 elements to the entire movement. One is to inspire. I'm not sure if you've had a chance, but this morning, the exhibition of all the past winners and nominees for the Index Awards was opened by the Crown Prince of Denmark. So it's down here in downtown Hong Kong for you to see. I think the other big part of what Index is doing is to educate. A large part about these learnings since 2005 is being embedded into the educational curriculum. It's being piloted now for the first time in Denmark, and then it's going to be passed on to educational institutions the world over as education open source. So I think the education component is really, really important. If you ask me what are the 3 most critical things in terms of design going forward, it'll have to be education, education, and education. And the third dimension, which is very, very important, is for Index and people like, Professor Chung is in a wonderful situation of straddling the design world and getting into politics and becoming a deputy mayor. It's not very, very often that you have people with a design hat in those kind of portals of power. And I think it's important that us as a design community as well do the third dimension, which is to engage. That we mustn't just be a mutual backslapping club of talking amongst each other, but we must talk to policymakers, talk to academics, and really, really reach out. So I think if you're talking about how to leverage the story and how to give it some kind of resonance all around the world, it's about inspire, educate, and engage. Questions?
Hi. Hello, Mr. Chung. I'd just like to ask a few questions about Korea. And we all know that, from the 1950s, I guess, Korea has been developing, and it was like a third world country before, but now it's actually placed as one of the most, growing Asian countries. So I would just like to say that right now, over the past 50 years, it has expanded very quickly, as we know. So probably the buildings and things like that are a little outdated as we look back. So what is the current future vision for Seoul as a whole? What are the new projects?
Okay, thank you for your question. As you mentioned earlier, the Korean design grows very quickly. Until 1980s, Korean design is underdeveloped, mainly because Korean industry is not that well developed. They don't need to develop really innovative product. But the situation totally changed from 1990s because we cannot compete with the price. We have to compete with something extraordinariness of the product. So we pay much attention to design rather than cutting, downing the price. So that the government initiated to promote design, so that the Korea Institute of Design Promotion initiated all the design policies of Seoul to improve the design quality all around the Korea. So that Samsung and LG and Hyundai Motors, for example, they invested a huge amount of money to improving their design competitiveness, as well as Seoul and other major cities also invest a certain amount of money for improving the design. So the kind of effort integrated into one direction to improving the design competitiveness, so that we immediately catch up some forerunners in terms of the design. But it's a long way to go, so we have to work more harder than before. Yes, it's my opinion. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a great regeneration in terms of Seoul and Korea generally, and particularly post-1990. And the other hat that Professor Chung wears that he doesn't always say is that he's also the chief design advisor for Samsung, one of those companies that's emblematic of the Korean Renaissance.
To Professor Chung, yes, I would like to know whether, do you think that this system of having a government body or institute guiding or facilitating the design within the government and maybe the private sector can be like copied in other places in Asia or even in Hong Kong maybe? Because there are a lot of these issues that are kind of forgotten or avoided in many places, but there's a lot of room. For example, here in Hong Kong, there's a lot of room for even government departments to improve the design, and for example, even highway department or very engineering-minded departments that the design is very poor, in fact, just for sake of the price or trying to save on the costs. So do you think this system can be like copied or even exported somehow from South Korea to the rest of the world maybe?
Thank you. So Professor Chung, are you going to create the open source manual for cities incorporating design as part of the source code to face down all the challenges of the 21st century?
This morning I had a very impressive discussion with the head of Danish Design Center in relation to the design ladder. So there are distinguished steps to developing design in a company as well as in a country. At the first stage is a non-design stage. They don't use design, but they can use design as styling, design as process, and design as strategy, so that the government can provide some environment for companies to improve their design abilities to go up other steps. Okay? We cannot push them, but we can provide certain environment or conditions to improve their design competitiveness, so that Korea just to follow that kind of steps. At the beginning, all of design promotion is government initiated, but nowadays the role of government is just narrowed down, and then the role of industry, the private sector is going up. So that kind of balance is more important than anything else. Thank you.
Michael, you may want to tell us about an index program for cities.
Yeah, I was just wondering if I may ask the moderator a question. I mean, if we still have time for showing the video.
Yes, we do. I think we'll finish with the video.
Okay.
Yeah. So folks, part of what we've done here is we've had 3 very inspiring stories of 3 winners. I hope what it serves to show you is that these are very accessible people. These are students who converted a master's thesis into a bona fide, fabulous business. This is a professor in an institution, an academic who takes on the role of driving design for change, for social economic change in the city of Seoul. This is Han Pham, who's also a design student who took a very, very personal experience and converted it into something which is completely life-saving. And what Michael and I, from an index point of view, want to say, use these as examples to fire yourself up, because what we're really wanting to have is for you to be up here sharing your stories. We've got 100,000 euros each to give away to any one of you. Nothing will give us more pleasure than to pass a check to somebody who is sitting in this hall this afternoon. And to give you some sense of what the whole index nomination process is about, we have a video for you, which we'll play right out now. Thank you.
The world today is full of challenges. One of these challenges is that we are 7 billion people living on the planet today. And according to the UN, it is estimated that we will be 9 billion people by the year 2050. So the question is, where are all these people going to live? How do we fit them into an already overpopulated world? And how do we do this in a sustainable way? Well, the experts say that we're all going to live in cities. It is estimated that 60% of us will live in megacities. That's 5.5 billion people. And these 5.5 billion people will be flushing toilets, using electricity, taking the metro, going to the hospital, and taking bike rides in the park, all the while coexisting in a sustainable way. And let's not forget that we are all creating waste while doing these things. Today, we create more than 100 million tons of plastic waste a year, and 40% of this is plastic packaging, which is not recycled and ends up in overcrowded landfills or nature, with devastating effects. Every year, 33 billion tons of CO2 is emitted into the atmosphere from factories and from industries around the world. Another big contributor to global warming is our huge production of meat. And let's not forget emissions from cars, buses, trucks and ships. And with our current rate of use, the EIA estimates that we will run out of oil by 2053. But nobody knows exactly what the world will look like in the year 2050. The only thing we know for sure is that the world is changing so fast. And in this rapidly changing world, we need sustainable solutions designed to improve life. Index Award is the biggest design award in the world, and probably the most important. It rewards solutions addressing local and global challenges. Challenges like water, and how we manage our planet's most valuable resource, while providing safe access to it. Education, and the importance of sharing knowledge and learning to create solutions that are economically, environmentally, and socially sustainable. Food, the production, distribution, and consumption of this vital, resource-heavy commodity, not forgetting the waste generated in all three stages. And finally, health, about preventing and curing diseases and improving conditions to increase life quality for people all over the world. And this is where you come in, the designers of the world who are addressing important challenges by design and by design to improve life. We need your design to improve life solution. You can nominate today. Just go to www.nominateforindexaward.dk and register. It's completely free of charge and open to everyone. Good luck.
So the panelists, and let's design to improve life. Thank you.